Hey y'all, it's Nat. Welcome back to a weekly reading vlog. I will be honest, I attempted to start this like Sunday. It's Thursday and I've just absolutely failed at filming. I don't know why, just nothing has gotten filmed. We're gonna take this from the top. Doing a weekly reading vlog, and honestly, going into September, I didn't really have a super structured TBR, which is probably a good thing because now I have made the decision that I am trying to do a 30 and 30. There are 30 days in September, and I am trying to read a book a day, or the equivalent of a book a day, even if I don't necessarily finish a book a day. It's the 11th, and so far I've actually been doing rather well at this. I can't believe that. I'm very impressed with myself. We'll see if I maintain it though. This morning, I started into Miss Austen Investigates the Hapless Milliner by Jessica Bull. This is an advanced reader copy I got from a friend, and it's like a cozy historical mystery, which I thought was pretty interesting. If you've spent any time on my channel, you know cozy mysteries and I don't tend to really get along, but I was thinking maybe if there's an additional element to it, like having it be a historical cozy mystery, maybe that'll make things a little bit more interesting, keep my attention a little bit better. Plus, this one also has the element of, obviously, Jane Austen is the main character. So it's a fictitious, mysterious twist on the beloved author, but I've never actually read any Jane Austen. I just don't really have any interest in it personally. And unfortunately, I have come to the decision that I'm going to DNF this. It was fine. It really wasn't holding my attention very well. I do think there are certain people out there that would love this sort of a book. I am just unfortunately not one of them. Basically, at the start, Jane is attending a ball and ends up being the woman to identify a lady whose body has been found. And so when she finds out that the magistrate who was in charge of investigating this crime is not doing a very good job, she takes it upon herself to figure out what's actually going on. And then her brother ends up unfortunately being implicated in the crime. And so now there's an additional push for her to figure out what's going on. I will say this was interesting as far as like learning about Jane Austen's actual life. From the Wikipedia research I've done, it seems like the author is actually being pretty true to real events. Again, of course, there's a layer of fiction added. The longer I kept reading, the more I realized I was having a very difficult time keeping engaged. The book was having a hard time holding my attention. I was working while listening to this and I found myself glazing over more often than not. So finally ended up making the decision to put this down. And then I had a real struggle figuring out what to pick up next. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. I've kind of been going back and forth between reading books that are for dedicated videos and then just reading books off of my own TBR. Like neither side was really interesting me at the time. And then finally I was like, you know, I haven't read a Star Wars book in a minute. I'm gonna pick up my next Star Wars novel. So I have now started into The Mask of Fear, I believe it is. And this is the first in a new series that is being kicked off in the Star Wars universe, and it is very, very politics focused. It's funny that I was wanting something that was a little bit more engaging, and it is, but like not because of action, which is what I usually would expect from a Star Wars novel, even though obviously Star Wars does have plenty of politics going on. So at this point, Palpatine has just recently taken power, and we alternate back and forth between Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and then Saw Gerrera. So we have two senators, one who is very, very against Palpatine and is really trying to find justice for the Jedi, one who is very against Palpatine but doing everything in her power to try and limit Palpatine's power by giving some of it back to the senators. Although I will say we're not actually technically following Saw Gerrera. We're following a person who he kind of has forced into being a member of his like guerrilla warfare team. So that's kind of interesting because there's this distance still held from what Saw Gerrera and his followers are really fighting for. This guy doesn't 100% fall in line with them, but what they're wanting is currently falling in line with what he's wanting, so he is working alongside them. Like I said, it's definitely very politics focused. I've gotten one perspective from a mole, and I'm not really sure if she's for the Empire or for the Separatists necessarily. It's kind of hard to tell, but we know she is spying on Mon Mothma. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen there. But it kind of worked out perfectly that I wasn't sure where to go and finally had that urge to pick up another Star Wars book, and so I decided to just listen to it. Apart from that, I have also been working on an advanced reader copy I have of Ladies in Hating by Alexandra Vasti. This is a enemies to lovers sapphic romance with like a touch of second chance romance, I guess I'll say. It's between two gothic novelists who ironically keep writing books that are very similar to each other. They either have similar names, they have similar elements, the characters have similar names. Even though both of them write under a pen name, come to find out that these two women actually knew each other. So we have on one side Georgie, who is the daughter of a lord, and then on the other side we have Kat, whose father was the butler to this lord, and he's pretty power hungry, not a particularly great guy. Whenever it was revealed that Georgie is a gothic novelist, he basically cut her off, and her mother ended up moving with her, so she has no real connection to her family anymore. Whereas Kat's father was rather viciously fired, and so her family kind of holds a grudge against Georgie's family, but Kat doesn't know the fact that Georgie no longer is in connection with her family. So it's got some complicated background there. But Kat was sort of Georgie's queer awakening. She ended up seeing Kat with another woman when they were teenagers and really showcasing to Georgie that it's possible for her to be attracted to women. And so now as adults, Georgie accidentally keeps being a bit of an ass to Kat, not only because of the whole writing element, but because she basically just becomes so enamored with Kat and tongue-tied that she always ends up saying the wrong thing. So it's been really entertaining in that way. They're both working on different novels at this point and keep accidentally running into each other in different places where they're doing research. It's very clear that each of them base things in their novels on things from their everyday lives, but also things from when they were growing up. And since they grew up in the same place, that keeps happening. There's also like a light ghost element to it. They are now both staying at this like haunted mansion, each there to do their own research. I'm having a good time with it. It's been pretty fun so far. Apart from all of that, I have my fantasy book club this evening, and this is the first time I'll be able to attend in so long. So I'm really excited, but I need to finish filming a few more things and then go speed through making and eating dinner so that I can get to book club. Happy Friday. So I had a very productive day overall between work stuff, video stuff. Josh and I went grocery shopping. Like we just got a lot done. Came home, made some delicious omni rice omelets, and then I also ended up making some little quiche bites. Like I said, just a very productive day. So finally had some time to relax this afternoon, which is really nice. The sad part is it is the 12th and I've officially hit my first day where I've not finished a book. Well, there it is. I just didn't take the time to read a manga today. I really did my best to try and get some reading in Ladies in Hating done, but like I said, I just was actually focused on getting other stuff done around the house that not enough reading happened. So I really only have read about 5%. Continuing to like it. I am feeling as though things are a little too lust focused for my taste. I wish we were seeing a little bit more of a development of their relationship that was actually, them getting to know one another now. Like we've seen little pieces here and there. Overall, it's either like they're sniping at each other or they're I fuck. On the opposite side, I have read a little bit further into my audiobook of The Mask of Fear. Continues to be very politics based. I really like getting to see more of Bale, especially with this time period where he kind of takes on the role as the politician who is most invested in trying to get justice for the Jedi. And I'm really liking that and kind of seeing how he and Mothma are both
trying to bring the emperor down, but in very different ways. I'm really liking that part. And then we also are getting to see this perspective of spies that I'm not 100% sure, are they on the side of the empire or are they on the politicians' sides? It's not 100% clear to me, but what is clear is that basically they are trying to do their best to maintain order and peace. So I'd be inclined to say the Republic side, but I'm very intrigued by them, and I'm also very intrigued by this separatist assassin dude who is working with Saw Gerrera's team. And it's clear that he does not 100% believe in what they are fighting for. They have similar enough goals, and so that's enough for him to continue working with them right now. So everything I have been reading, I am really liking. Josh and I are planning to go for a hike tomorrow morning because the weather is kind of normalizing a little bit. It was starting to hit fall weather, but unfortunately we have gone back up temperature wise. So we're gonna go for a quick hike in the morning. We haven't done that in a minute, so that'll be really fun. And of course, I'm gonna force him to listen to some audiobook. I am thinking it'll probably be a Stephen Graham Jones, one of his shorter works. Not 100% on which one it is going to be yet, but we'll start into something while we're driving over there. I will do my best to try and read a little bit more into Ladies in Hating because I really want to try and get this read. Really wanting to finish this here soon. Do I think 60-ish% will happen tomorrow? No. Not really. If anything, I might end up having to listen to a horror novella or something. Maybe a manga. Maybe I'll do a manga instead tomorrow. But 12 days in before I finally didn't finish a book in some capacity. Pretty good if I do say so myself. Hello friends. Happy Saturday. It is a miracle I remembered to film this because I just woke up from a nap on the couch. I had a really great day. Josh and I went for a nice long hike. Well, I say nice long. It was like 3 miles. We're getting back into hiking season, so started relatively easy. Plus, it did start to get hot by the time we left. Took a nice nap. Had ourselves a little date night. We ran by Barnes & Noble, which was possibly a mistake, but I did in fact have a few bingos from my book buying bingo board, meaning I let myself make some decisions. First up, I grabbed Wild Reverence. I mean, I already read this, so it doesn't add to my own TBR, which is great. Plus, just oh my god, this edition is so pretty, and I couldn't resist. I'm weak. And then on the opposite side, I did grab something for my TBR, The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas, because I mean, I have loved the 2 prior books by this author. She does like horror romances. Say less. I mean, I want to read this next one. Do I have any idea what it's about? No, not a clue. So then we came home and I was like, okay, I didn't finish a book yesterday and I haven't really finished anything today. We started into the audiobook of Zombie Bake Off by Stephen Graham Jones whenever we were driving out to the park and back. Off to a really weird start. Not 100% sure what's going on. It seems like we are following a group of people who are both taking up space at a event center. Half of the group is there for a bake-off like thing, so it's all these older women, and then on the other side a wrestler convention or something. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, it's been off to a really weird start, so we haven't gotten super far in that. And I was like, I'm gonna let myself cheat. I picked up a manga, so I read Library Wars of Volume 13 by Kiiro Yumi. Really enjoyed this one because it's very focused on the plot around the library wars with the library task force and trying to fight against censorship. There's a specific author who is like really being threatened because he wrote a book that had to do with obviously a fictional war, and the censors felt as though there was too much information there that it would like lead somebody to make these decisions to have this actually happen. So he is in danger of being taken by the media. I think they're called like the Media Betterment Committee or something like that. And the library task force has to protect this man. Kind of kicks off a legal battle with the government to try and ensure his protection. And so we're watching the events of that unfold, but at the same time, Kashahara is really starting to debate confessing to Dojo, her superior, that she has feelings for him. And it's a silly good time a lot of the time, but then as far as the library element goes, it's actually very timely and I'm really, really enjoying it. Then I have gotten a little bit of Ladies in Hating read here and there throughout the day. I'm at 57%, continuing to like this. We did get some spice, not like a ton, but a little bit. I still wish we were seeing more of these two women really getting to know each other and understand each other a little bit more, developing a relationship before they were like jumping into bed, because I do think the building relationship between the two of them has improved from when they were obviously like at each other's throats, but I don't really feel as though they actually should be showcasing a lot of interest in one another just yet. It does very much feel like it is still looks and lust focused. So not super loving that, honestly, unfortunately. All in all, it's still holding my attention pretty well. I think I'm gonna go get ready for bed and lay down, and I will attempt to read a little bit more into Ladies in Hating until I most likely pass out. Good evening, friends. So, I had a really productive day when it came to getting stuff done around the house. For example, as you can see, I finally started to organize my office a little bit. Been in this house for over 2 years now, and I'm still unpacking stuff. So my dad came over today and helped me hang out these shelves, some shelves in our bedroom, some like photo pieces. It's been a productive day, and the house looks really cute, if I do say so myself. I'm glad to finally have my bat shrine up now. I do actually have 2 more art pieces that I think I am going to want to put over each of the bat shelves, but I haven't made that decision just yet. Anyway, I have actually been getting a fair amount of reading done today, but I haven't necessarily finished anything yet. So we will need to double down and work on that. Starting from the top, I am at 69%, nice, into Ladies in Hating, and continuing to like that. I just hit the point where I felt like I was going to need to film an update for my ARC reading vlog, honestly, and so I kind of put a pause on it. But that meant I was like, let's take advantage of this and try to get a novella read. So thankfully, because I keep forgetting to cancel my Kobo Plus, there are a fair amount of horror novellas that are available to me. So I ended up starting into Sour Candy by Kealan Patrick Burke, and I'm literally at 50% into that. So the start of it is following this man who basically just is taking a trip to the grocery store, ends up seeing this poor woman whose son seems to be having a temper tantrum, and has kind of an awkward interaction with the child. On his way home, gets rear-ended by this woman, and the child is nowhere to be found, and turns out this kid is now supposed to be his kid. There's documentation to showcase this is his son, and he has no idea what's happening. That's about where I'm at so far, and it's weird. It's very psychological, like it's really Twilight Zone-y. Main character is very aware of this, so it's kind of following along of like, it's not necessarily is the main character crazy and just can't accept it. I feel like the author hasn't led me in that direction. If anything, it's more like, are we going to watch this character break down, or is he going to somehow figure out how to maintain his sanity in this situation? Also, like, what's up with the kid? What's going on with this change? It sort of is making me think of like a child version of the movie It Follows, which is a really weird thing to say now that I say that out loud. It's strange and creepy, and I was reading it pretty quickly when I was reading it this morning, but I just hit the point of being antsy and needing to get up and do something. Anyway, so that is it for now. I am going to transfer some footage onto my computer. I'm gonna go take a shower, and then I'm gonna do my freaking best to try and read the rest of Sour Candy tonight. So at the very least, I will still only be 1 book behind, not multiple.
So let's start from the top. Hey guys, happy Monday. I actually have gotten a fair amount read. So I finished out Sour Candy last night. I'm still only one book behind. I liked that one overall. It was really creepy, really unsettling. I do have a few issues when it comes to like the final twist, the final like reveal moment, that last line, just because in the scheme of what had been revealed to us, I don't feel like that 100% makes sense. But maybe I'm just not reading it correctly. I'm not 100% sure. But it's also sort of an open ending situation. One way or another, though, very, very unsettling. Did not sleep great last night. Not necessarily because of that book, but who knows? Maybe it was because of the book. I think it's because my body was sore from our hike, but who's to say? This morning, I continued on with my audiobook of The Mask of Fear. Lots of politics. Lots of politics. Continuing on with that, it does, around the halfway point, finally start to have some more exciting things happening. We get to get more involved in like the spy games that are taking place, and we also get to explore a little bit more about some of the characters that we already knew going into this. It's really interesting exploring particularly Bale and Mon's perspectives in like what they went through whenever there was the shift of power after the Republic fell and the Empire took over, kind of thing. The trauma that they experienced because of the roles they had as senators, being willing to critique the Republic, and obviously now not really being fans of Palpatine. And I also really like how we're seeing the way that trauma is influencing how they are leading now as politicians. Whereas Saw, I mean, he believes in what he is fighting for, but because of the situation with the Empire and the Republic, it's one of those where it's like, is what he's fighting for still the same thing? Or is the shift in power what he needed? How is he presenting this to the people who follow him? And what is he doing to ensure they continue following him? And I really like seeing how he is very much a master manipulator in a way that we haven't seen so explicitly. So I'm really enjoying that. The other side characters we're following, there's like one guy who was working with Saw that I still have like, he has like really interesting elements of the plot, but I don't really feel too strongly about this character because I'm still not 100% sure, like, what is this guy's real motivations? Honestly, maybe I just missed that. I don't know. But so I continued listening to the audiobook of that one, but seeing as how it is obviously a Star Wars book for my canon project, I wanted to put a pause around the halfway point so I could film an update, meaning I started into my next audiobook, which was a short book that was on my own TBR so I could try and continue on working down my own TBR, but also working on getting a book read. So I began Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder, which is basically following this woman who is a stay-at-home mom and believes she is turning into a dog. And y'all, it is definitely really weird, but I'm really liking this. Within like 10 minutes of the audiobook, I had numerous things that I was like, I need to mark that because we are going to come back to annotate that in the physical book. Didn't intend to use this for a video, but I think it may now be relevant for a video that'll be coming out in the future. So really like this. In fact, I actually hit about the halfway point into this one as well. On the opposite side with my ebook, I read more of Ladies in Hating on my lunch break, and I'm at 87%. So my goal is to hopefully finish this one tonight. And very, very sad to say, this kind of took a downward turn in the last 30% for me. Like I was saying, I really wish we were getting more built out around the relationship before these two were making any big promises, dropping an L-bomb. No, I am not convinced that these two feel as seriously about one another as they are stating they do. The author has not convinced me of that in her storytelling at all. And then there's this like ongoing thing with one of the main characters that ends up causing, I wouldn't even really say a third act conflict because it feels like it actually happens earlier than the third act conflict, but around the 75-ish%, Georgie basically ends up making an ass out of herself and hurting Kat's feelings in a way that Kat explicitly asked her not to do. And then in Georgie's mind, we see that she says she knew all along this was going to happen, and it just made the whole situation so frustrating. She has a massive martyr complex we get to see, and it really, really was grating, especially because it very much felt like the issue that was going on between the two of them really was just coming down to the fact that like they were not talking things out. And like I said, I don't feel like we've seen enough of these two directly interacting to to convince me of a romance. So the fact that the major issue in this third act conflict between the two of them also comes down to their lack of communication just reinforces my irritation. So I really, really did not like that. And then for being novelist, these two at numerous different points have a way of suddenly losing all capability to form words. And it's so frustrating. I get being shocked or stunned or anxious or uncomfortable and not quite being able to form a sentence properly. But the number of times it has happened between these two is ridiculous. And like I said, they literally make their living as novelists. You'd think they'd be at least okay with words. So that just kind of feels like lazy writing. And again, tying back to the miscommunication issue, I'm really sad that, like I said, the last 30-ish% of this book for me has kind of gone downhill. And what's happening with this final element of the plot, I just don't care about that much. I really don't. I think it's a waste of page time. They should have been building out and dragging out the romance so much more. So yeah, on that note, like I said, this is the first of numerous updates I'm going to be filming tonight, but I just want to get this one out of the way, and my goal for the evening is to finish Ladies in Hating.
Y'all, happy, what's today? Tuesday. So I actually have done a fair amount of reading today. Once again, we're staying on top of things. This is great. So I did officially finish out Ladies in Hating last night, my arc that I had. Yeah, I did not love what ended up happening in the end of this. How things closed out was not my favorite. I really felt like certain elements that I was expecting to really enjoy about this book just fell down for me in the end, which is such a shame. I also was not sold on this relationship between the two main characters being nearly as serious as, it's claiming to be towards the end of the book. And that made the epilogue section in particular really cringy. I also thought it was kind of odd that there's this mysterious element that crops up maybe like the last 60-ish% of the book. And for one, I don't think it was set up early enough for me to really be invested into it. But for two, it's not 100% resolved at the end of this, which makes me wonder, is there an ongoing mystery throughout this series? Is that happening? Or are we just never getting answers for that? Is that a plot hole? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure, honestly. At the very least, finished it out last night. Ironically, I wasn't thinking that I would continue on and finish The Mask of Fear so quickly. I ended up listening to the rest of the audiobook of The Mask of Fear today while I was getting ready, going to work, while at work. Did really, really like this one. Things were a lot more exciting around the 70-ish% mark, and we did have a lot more action, and there's some interesting alliances that take place, and then some interesting twists and turns that Fried did surprise me with. I really enjoyed that. This does close out very politics focused again, so it's almost as though the most fast-paced, exciting part of the story, it really takes place in the middle, but things start slow with politics and end slow with politics, and there's also just great exploration of the characters and the development of them. Obviously, because we know this is taking place during the reign of the Empire, it is a little difficult to really be invested and hopeful in some of these political situations that they're setting up in the hopes of trying to take some power back and, limit Palpatine, because I already know what's going to happen. I've seen the films a million times. So that is kind of an interesting situation when it comes to reading this novel that's set during this time period. But even still, Fried did manage to make me invested and intrigued and curious as to what was going to happen next with the situations that he sets up. Very much enjoyed that one. And then on my lunch break, I decided to start into Ghost Business by Jen DeLuca. This author is going to be at Buns and Roses, the romance book tea I've mentioned numerous times on my channel, and I am so excited. I'm planning to buy a copy of this at the event so I can put my money towards the nonprofit that I was hosting. So I grabbed a copy from my library, which means it's really difficult difficult to not be annotating a DeLuca book. But so far, we have the setup of our two main characters. We've got Sophie and Tristan. Sophie is a native to Boneyard Keys, the most haunted coastal town in Florida. And then Tristan is a new arrival who is attempting to set up a haunted tour here, but we learn he owns a business that hosts haunted tours all over the country. This is actually going to be their 13th location. And the interesting situation that I'm not 100% sure if this is what's happening. I want to see it actually play out, but it seems like all of the stories across every single tour are the same kind of urban legend stories that you can hear everywhere. Like everyone has some sort of a rendition on these. They're not really true to the location where the tour is taking place. There isn't real history backing up the stories that are being told in comparison to Sophie's, which are very much focused on the town itself. And because her tour is pretty small potatoes, he didn't even realize there was a haunted tour in the town and now is already kind of figuring out a way to sort of run her out of business. So it definitely has this enemies to lovers setup. But they start out by meeting each other at a bar and flirting it up. So there's also an attraction element, which is entertaining. Already really enjoying this, already really excited to continue reading it tonight. I did get about 30 pages in this morning, so we're still in the setup stage at this point. They don't even know. Tristan knows that they're competing. Sophie doesn't know that they're competing yet, so still early on. It is so up my alley. I do have a trend of trying to find haunted tours anywhere I go. So this is something I'm really, really excited to love. And then finally, to close out the day, I have continued on with Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. I'm at about 170 pages in, and I am continuing to really like this. I went through and transferred some annotations last night and then made a point of taking this with me. So anytime I did have an annotation, I could mark it down while I listened to the audiobook because this is working really well for me. I will say it is not the most subtle of metaphors. It does kind of hit you over the head with it a little bit, but even still, really like what Yoder is doing here with this setup of motherhood and her turning into a dog and this complicated relationship she has with being a mother and losing her identity. It's weird. I'm really liking how it's happening. It's so weird. And we're finally starting to get a little bit of background on the mother character and kind of diving into like I wouldn't say generational trauma, that's not quite the right term, but the influence that motherhood has on a person if they end up becoming a mother. So I'm really intrigued to see if we're going to dive into more of that. I'm very excited to continue reading this one as well. So we're still doing pretty well. I am one book behind again. It's still only one book behind. That's a big positive. Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. Apparently I just completely blacked out on filming a final update on Wednesday. Unfortunately, I did not finish a book on Wednesday, though I did make a lot of progress. I think I was around like 250-ish pages into Ghost Business by Jen DeLuca, and given how quickly I read it, I think you can tell I was really, really liking this. The two main characters, the banter back and forth, I loved the competition element, but I also really enjoy getting to see the both of them get to know one another and understand each other's point of view in their business a little bit more. I'm still not really a big fan of Tristan's side where it's all, oh, it's for the tourist attraction. It doesn't need to be accurate. People are just here for a good time. And it's like, I can be here for a good time and want historical accuracy. Wow. My hair looks terrible this morning. The way things closed out, though, in terms of the conflict, definitely made perfect sense to me, especially for how both of the characters were built up. It seems a little overdramatic, but then at the same time, it's like, this relationship has not really been very long, and both of you have your own issues you're still dealing with that are affecting it, so I can understand why pretty quickly you'd have a problem. And then how they end up working things out as far as the ghost tour element happened, exactly what I was expecting. But I really liked it. It was super cute. I think this was an improvement from the first one in the series, honestly. And then I did also continue reading Nightbitch on Wednesday. I didn't get a ton of this read, just a little bit here and there. I swear, like every time I started the audio, it was like I had another section that was just annotation, 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 annotation. So many tabs. I still need to go through and transfer a few of them, but really, really liked this one as well. Onto my coffee. I'll be right back. But I really liked the themes, the discussions that were going on in this. I really liked how the author ended up tying everything together for the main character at the end. It was very weird, and I'm still not 100% sure if she actually ever turned into a dog or if this was just all in her head and like maybe she had a little bit of a mental break, which she then turned into a artistic inspiration. It was weird, and I liked it. I liked the way the themes were woven in. I'm glad I finally got around to reading this one. That is officially it for today, y'all. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let's go ahead and leave a dog emoji in the comments. I have links to all of my socials as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you. Bye.